Hello everyone, my name is Pranav Kumar and I'm from Dynamics 365 Fendo Fast Track team. I work closely on the implementation side of finance and operations. Uh, Murali, over to you.
Okay, let's look at the agenda next, what we are planning to cover, and we have exciting content ahead. So we'll quickly look at an overview of DOM and need for DOM. We'll look at how DOM works and how DOM is being used by our customers today. A quick demo of how DOM works, the best practices, and how DOM works within the intelligent order management that we launched in public preview, as well as you can post your questions at any point of time, and we will have a dedicated time for Q&A at the end. Let's go look at DOM now. So basically, distributed order management is an intelligent optimization service that uses mixed integer programming to maximize order fulfillment while minimizing costs within the supply chain network. Historically, there was a well-defined relationship between suppliers, manufacturers, distributors, retailers, and customers. With modern supply chain network where product fulfillment can be done from multiple channels, retailers must adapt to order changes, spike in demand, and suppliers, delays, and changes. DOM becomes necessity for today's organization, and we see this trend with increased usage in last 1.5 years during the COVID times. With large supply network that includes large number of stores and warehouses along with a product mix, DOM optimizes this large number of orders together, minimizing the cost. It uses least distance that translates into lower cost between the source of supply and destination, along with fulfillment cost to find the optimal source. So let's look at some of the pains that DOM is addressing next. So if you look at many retail consumer goods organizations, they use multiple systems to manage inventory, warehousing, product information management, merchandising, and POS and other systems, right? So these, because of the variety of systems that are involved, the companies have a lack of real-time inventory, they have frequent out of stock, lack of central visibility, and it becomes really hard to fulfill orders for the organization. So distributed order management basically helps with that. So let's look at what are some of the things that it's helping in terms of organization goals. So decision makers basically are concerned around issues in 3 categories. So increasing the customer satisfaction, increasing the revenue and margins, and decreasing the cost. DOM basically helps in all of these with fulfilling the products from the right source, as well as increasing the customer satisfaction since the orders that have been placed are fulfilled in a timely manner. So in the next section, let's actually look at how DOM works. Pranav?
Okay, so I will take it from here. Now, before we go into details of how DOM works, I wanted to give you some business scenarios on where DOM is, we are seeing being heavily used. So, and especially within the context of finance and operations. So, there are some organizations who are taking the sales order from their customers, but they may have multiple warehouses or stores where they want to fulfill from. Now, when the sales order is created, let's say it is getting created from e-commerce, or it is coming from a call center or some other integration sources. At the time of sales order creation, we may not know what is the right warehouse where the sales order should be fulfilled from. When I say right warehouse, the right warehouse is in context of fastest delivery or minimum cost. Now that's the DOM comes into the picture. Okay, so it helps businesses to optimize where a particular sales order should be fulfilled from, so that they're saving from cost or reducing the timeline or whatever their business objective is. So that's the context of DOM here. Now, in my screen, as you can see, I've created 3 different buckets here for data inputs, optimization, and outputs. So data inputs is nothing but the sales orders that we get from the various sources, right? It can be first-party e-commerce, that is D365 e-commerce, or any third-party e-commerce channels, or it can come from, like EDI or any CRM or any other sources through integration into finance and operations. So at the end, it lands into finance and operation as a sales order. There are some setups and some dependency on data, like use available inventory. So inventory is the key factor here, right? We can fulfill only the sales order for which we have available inventory. And the most important setup that we have to do, and I will cover this in the demo also, is the fulfillment profile. So fulfillment profile is basically where a business can define how a particular sales order should be fulfilled. Okay. And there are different business scenarios for different businesses. As I said, like some of them might want to save costs and some of them focus on customer satisfaction. So once we have the input data in form of sales order, in form of fulfillment profiles as a setup, then comes into the DOM optimization part. So when DOM optimization part kicks in, it optimizes the order for delivery perspective. It basically chooses what are the right set of warehouses or stores that should fulfill the sales order. Okay. Now, in the current out of box, we are having 7 different rules, that will drive how the order is fulfilled. Okay. So talking about rules, we will see in the demo, like how fulfillment profile and rules are related. But I will give you some business scenarios related to this rule. So out of the 7 rules, the first rule is like the partial order rule. So the business context is like, let's say you're getting a order from a customer who is placing order through e-commerce. And, like the customer is asking for 10 different items. Okay. But the business might not have all those 10 items on hand, right, at a given point of time. And let's say they have only on hand for 7 different items. So then the decision comes into the picture that whether they should fulfill those 7 lines or they should skip it or fulfill 10 lines when the inventory is available. So that's where partial order rule comes into the picture, which gives you flexibility to define either you can partially fulfill an order or you can fulfill the whole order. Okay. The second important rule of DOM is the minimum inventory rule. So, the business scenario can be that a organization is there who is fulfilling the sales order, and they have warehouses as well as the stores who fulfills the sales order. Now, in the stores, you may want to keep a certain limit of inventory for your walking customers. Let's say I want to keep 5 quantity of something, and I don't want to, fulfill the online orders for that. So that's the minimum inventory rule comes into the picture, where you can define the set of warehouses for what set of products, what should be the minimum inventory. Okay. The third one is the fulfillment location priority rule, where you can define that in priority that what warehouses should fulfill a certain orders of the item. The business context is like you may want to use your warehouses, the central DC first before you reach out to stores. So depending on how business need, you can have you can set up the fulfillment location priority rule. So fulfillment location priority rule, again, it's a set of warehouses and product categories that you can set up. The next is like maximum distance rule. It just specifies the maximum distance that a warehouse can ship to. Like if you're putting like 100 kilometers, then the warehouse will fulfill the sales order where the delivery address is within 100 kilometers of the warehouse address. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the maximum order rules. This is basically like how many orders a warehouse or a store can take in a day to fulfill it. So during holiday season, you may get a lot of sales order, right? But you may not fulfill all those sales order. And especially in context of your retail stores, you don't want to just bombard them with fulfilling only online stores, because they may be getting a lot of customer footfall also. So that's where you can limit that 20 or 30, whatever that limit is, should be released for the stores to fulfillment. The maximum rejects rule is just just specify that how many times a particular sales order line can be rejected before it is set as acceptable. So the business scenario is like the DOM is run, it assigns the sales order to a particular warehouse or a store. Now that warehouse or a store may not want to fulfill that line, right? So in that case, what they can do is they can reject that particular line. And, next time the DOM runs, it can be assigned to a different location or warehouse. So that store can also reject that line, right? So you can define a threshold of how many such rejections can happen before it goes to a different bucket called exception bucket, where someone has to look into the order. And last but not the least is the offline fulfillment location. So this is basically the scenario where you may want to keep certain warehouses or stores for not fulfilling these orders, right? Example is like the kiosk stores that you see at airports. So you don't want to assign any, online orders to be fulfilled. Okay. So again, coming back and quick recap, data input, we talked about the different sales order. The optimization is basically, like how the order will be brokered through DOM. And that will be dependent on your business rules, the 7 rules that we just talked about. And the output is the fulfillment plan. The fulfillment plan is basically DOM's suggestion that, hey, this is how your sales order should be fulfilled. Now, you can either auto apply it or you can not, but in normal world, like you will always keep auto apply. So what it means is like when the order is brokered, the sales order line will be automatically updated with the suggested warehouses. Okay. And that's precisely what we are going to see in the demo as well. Moving on to next. So now I'm going to demo a DOM run for a particular sales order. It's a controlled demo, like where I have recorded the demo, but I will be speaking to it as we make progress on the demo. But before we go into details of demo, let's look at what is the business scenario that I'm going to cover in the demo. So the scenario that I'm going to describe uses USRT legal entity demo data. Okay. I've selected a customer, Eve Whitehead, who places an order through call center channel for items youth accessory combo set and adult helmet accessory combo set. Okay. So I mentioned here call center, but in practical world, it can be in e-commerce or any other order source also that we talked about in the previous slide. And in the demo, we would cover the DOM processing of the order based on the parameters and fulfillment profiles and see like how this particular order is brokered. So let me begin with demo. So first, I'm going to talk about little about one of the key setup on which DOM depends is the fulfillment profile. So fulfillment profile, like as I spoke, like it basically defines that how DOM should be fulfilling a order, right? So in the fulfillment profile, it's a configurable where like you can enable it or disable it. And in the fulfillment profile, I'm disabling it so that we can go over some of the fields, okay, in details. So the fulfillment group comes as first of the field here. Like fulfillment group basically tells you that what are the set of warehouses or stores who are going to fulfill this particular the sales order related to this fulfillment profile. Okay. The example is same like that I gave you for the offline fulfillment rule, like where you want to exclude certain warehouses or stores for fulfilling the sales order. The next is the legal entity here. So DOM can run across multiple legal entities at a given point of time. But for the sake of demo, I am running the DOM only for USRT legal entity. Okay. The next is the rules. So we spoke about the 7 different rules, and in a fulfillment profile, we define what are the active rules that is going to be applicable on that particular fulfillment profile. So as you can see, like I'm using 2 different rules. One is the partial order rule, and the other one is like minimum inventory rule for the stores. So let's look at one of the rule, the partial order rule, which we see generally being used. So in this particular rule, like this is not a hard constraint. So hard constraint is something that you define on your rule. So what happens is like when DOM runs, it can run into 2 iterations. So let's say you have 2 different rules here. So in run 1, it will run all the rules, but on the second run, it will only run the rules which are hard constraint. Okay. So within the rule, like in the 9th section are the parameters that we define, like how the order is going to be fulfilled, right? So maximum fulfillment location is basically like we tell that, okay, how many stores or warehouses can fulfill a sales order. It can be 1, it can be 2, or it can be any number. In my case, I'm taking any number just for the sake of simplicity. But in production, probably you should be using 2 or 3, or depending on the business need, how they want to do it. The next is like fulfill partial orders. So the example is like, I guess same like if you have 10 items and you want to fulfill 7 of them. So if this is checked, that means like 7 line items will be fulfilled. And fulfill partial lines is, like if for 1 line item, let's say 12 of the sales order quantity that the customer wanted to buy, but you have only 8 available on hand, right? Out of those 12 quantity. So if this is checked, that means like 8 will be fulfilled. So even lines can also be partially fulfilled. Okay. The context is here like, you can define all these rules individually depending on the business need. So in my demo, I'm here showing you only the partial order rule. But when you are configuring, then you can define the rules in detail as per the business need. So as you can see, the next rule was minimum inventory rule for the stores, where we define like, okay, so these are the minimum set of inventories which should not be fulfilled by, like DOM orders. Okay, so beside the rule, there are 2 important setups. The mode of delivery is one of them. And in mode of delivery, it's a qualifying factor for the sales order. So a sales order can have multiple mode of delivery, but we can define what are the active set of mode of delivery that uh, this particular fulfillment profile will use. So I just selected 4 different here. But again, as per business need, if they have like 20 or 30 different modes of delivery, and then they have to select what are the mode of delivery that that they want to fulfill the sales order using this fulfillment file. Okay, so mode of delivery is one option. The other option is like sales origin, and sales origin is perhaps the most important other setup here. So like when sales order comes into a, whether it is coming from D365 for first party commerce, the sales order origin on the sales order header is always defined. Now, if you are getting order from, let's say, multiple sources and you want to run DOM only for specific sources, then you can use the sales order origin. So let's say you are getting the users are creating regular orders also. You are getting the orders from e-commerce. You are getting the orders from integration. Now you want to run that DOM processing only for your e-commerce orders. So then what you can do is like you can define the sales order origin here. Like I have defined m-commerce here, and DOM will only run for the sales order, where order origin is this particular value. This is a very important setup, and we will cover this in further also in other sections as well. So once we see like fulfillment profile is set up, we can enable this, and then it is ready to be used. So just a quick recap. The fulfillment profile is the most important setup that you will be doing for DOM. The other is DOM parameters, which you will also see, but this defines how a order is going to be brokered through DOM. Okay. So next, I'm going to talk a little bit about the DOM parameters, the other key setup. So in DOM parameters, basically emphasizing on important fields like enable distributed order management has to be yes, otherwise you won't be able to use it. And you have to confirm Bing Map usage for for DOM processing as yes also. I mean, both of this has to be yes, because Bing Map, how it will be used is like uh, it calculates the distance, right? So if you have multiple warehouses and the delivery address, then if we have to find out which is the nearest warehouse, an order can be fulfilled. So we need to calculate distance. So Bing Map services are being used there. The other are standard setups on the retention and rejection period with regard to fulfillment profiles. The local radius region is important field. So 10 is default value. You should keep 10, like we suggest, but it depends on business needs as well. Max auto fulfillment location, I'm keeping 10, after 10, the DOM line, the sales order, exception will not consider it. The most important thing here is the solver type. So when you are having a cloud hosted environment, the default solver type that you will see is simplified solver. But we always recommend you to use the production solver even in your development boxes when you're testing it. Okay, there is a way like how you can change the solver type to production solver. We have stated that very clearly on the doc side, so you can follow that. It's a very simple set of steps that you have to follow, and production solver will be enabled. Okay, now why production solver? So production solver not only gives you a better performance, but there are certain DOM rules like partial order rules that we were speaking about, and that's one of the rule that is in my fulfillment plan, fulfillment profile. Uh, it needs production solver to run. Okay, so just make sure that you have production solver turned on in your DOM parameter. So we just saw two important setup here, right? Fulfillment profiles as well as DOM parameter. Now let's look at the sales order. So I have created the sales order beforehand. So why I created, like because in my scenario, I am expecting the sales order is either got created already from a call center, or it can come from a e-commerce channel also. So in my sales order, when it was created by the user, so you will notice that I have two different items. First line item has quantity 10 and second line item has quantity as 5. And you will notice that on both the lines, by default, the DC Central is the warehouse that I have specified, that was specified when the order was created. So, sorry, I lost a little bit here. Yeah. So DC Central was there. Now let's look at the customer address. So customer address is Redmond, the delivery address. So what it means is like when the order is placed, like the order was created with a DC centralized warehouse, but the delivery address where customer wants the item is Redmond, Washington. So for people, in the United States, the Austin, where the DC central warehouse is, it's in southern part of the Texas, south central part of US, whereas the delivery address is in the northwest. So it's very far, those warehouses, right? So we saw the sales order. Now let's run the DOM and we will see that how particular order is, processed. So in this screen, you will see that I'm running DOM from the UI. It uses a standard framework, batch framework only. The only thing here is the fulfillment profile, which is getting selected by default. And I have only one fulfillment profile in the system. So even in production, like what we see customers are using, they generally have one or two fulfillment profile. Normally, it will be a batch job that should run at a given reference, but I'm running it from UI. Okay, so I will run this batch job, and when this batch job is run, it will notify me when it is complete. Okay, so I will click OK, and it basically tells me that it's getting executed. And once it is executed, I get the notification that the batch job is complete. Now let's look at the fulfillment plan, which is the output section. So as we spoke, like fulfillment plan is the output from DOM optimization, where it shows you that how a particular order should be fulfilled, right? So if you remember, like the sales order was created for DC Central Warehouse, but now like in the order fulfillment details, DOM is telling me that like the order should be fulfilled from different warehouses. Okay, so in the line one, the top 3 and 4 sections are very important. So in the fulfillment type, like it is a full, like full order brokering. So means like all the items has been fulfilled, and the other is a split. Okay, and number of lines is 2. So what is split and the number of fulfillment location here means is like I had 10 different quantity that the customer has placed order for, but not all 10 quantity is available in one warehouse, the nearest warehouse. So what system did, it looked at the on-hand inventory and it looked that Bellevue has 9 available to be fulfilled and Seattle has 1. So it split the sales order line into 2. And for people like who are not aware of this location, Redmond is very close to Bellevue and Seattle. So that means like DOM optimized this order to be fulfilled from the nearest warehouses, which are the Bellevue and Seattle warehouses, rather than the Texas warehouse. Okay, so like this is one of the very key functionality of DOM, and that's how this optimization is happening. So if we look at the second line, the second line, all 5 quantity was available in Seattle warehouse. So then it will be coming from Seattle warehouse. So at the end of order, two different warehouses are getting involved. So Seattle warehouse will be fulfilling two different line items, one quantity of line one, and 5 quantity of line two, and Bellevue warehouse will be fulfilling the other set, like 9 quantity of item one. Okay, so now let's look at the sales order. Okay, so in my setup, the auto fulfillment was turned on. So when we go back to sales order, you will see that the lines are split here. So earlier I used to had like 10 for line 1 and 5 for line 2. But after DOM processing, after the optimization, it broke the sales line and it updated the warehouses also on the sales line on where it should be fulfilled from. Okay. So one important thing is the DOMS log. So under manage time, you have the view DOMS log. So, when you're setting up the DOM fulfillment profile, with multiple rules, and when you're running the sales order, and, it runs in a bad job. And once DOM processing is complete, you want to see why sales order got a split in a certain way, or why system is asking me to fulfill the sales order, through a different mechanism and not the other way, right? So if you have to go through the details of it, then you can use a view DOMS log, okay? And this tells you, there is a timestamp here. So you will see that 11:04:49 p.m. and 11:04:41 p.m. So when the DOM processing is started, so it will just tell you the log messaging, which all particular rules applied, and how many quantities getting, fulfilled from a particular warehouse and things like that. So it will be for the understanding of customer or partner when they implement DOM, that why fulfillment was in a certain way or not. Okay. So, and at this DOM logs, you can see at the line level also. So in this, I'm looking at the whole order level, but if you are having multiple lines, then probably you may want to go to the sales line and view the DOM log from there. Okay. So the other important thing is the DOM workspace, which we will see. And, so it is a set of tiles, right? So it will show you some input data. By default, there are 5 boxes, but as the business need, you can create tiles as the business needs. Okay. So before we go into tiles, let's go back to the sales order. And, let's talk about the one other scenario, where a line is getting rejected. Okay. So we spoke a little bit about it. So what happens is a order was assigned to a certain warehouse, but for some reason, the store manager, he may not want to fulfill that line because he does not have that inventory for some reason, or there can be some other business reason, right? So in that case, what they can do is they can reject the sales line. So in this demo, in this section, that's what I'm trying to show, on the sales order update line, there is an option for reject line. So you can select the line, okay, and you can click on OK, and you will see that there is a field for fulfillment status. So that gets rejected, right? So this may happen throughout the business, right? You may have hundreds of warehouses or stores who are fulfilling the orders, and each of the stores will be, they can be accepting or rejecting the sales order lines for fulfillment. So if you have to see a consolidated view of how many lines got rejected, then you can use the workspace from there. Okay. So in the workspaces, OpenList is one, but there is another section for rejected order lines. So, you can see that since I rejected one of the lines in order 537, so it is showing up here. Okay. So just a quick recap of the demo, what we did. We went through 2 key setup, the DOM parameters, the fulfillment profile. So if you're using DOM, then you have to have these 2 setups in place. And then we saw how a sales order is brokered. We saw your view DOMS log can be important. And, there's a workspaces for DOM out of box that you can use for some of your dashboard things. Okay. So moving on to next slide is how customers are using DOM. So, let me re-emphasize one thing, like DOM can be used for any sales order which has retail sales as well. That means like on the sales order header, you will see, like retail sales as a field, and that's turned on basically by default if the order is coming from a call center, if it is coming from e-commerce. Okay. Uh, but that's the basic thing that needs to have. Okay. So regarding how customers are using DOM, so uh, currently multiple of our customers are using, and these customers falls into multiple verticals, like we see the fashion industry, jewelry, home and garden, appliances, and farm equipment. So all those customers are using uh, DOM for fulfilling their orders. And as Murali was also saying, we see an increase in DOM usage after COVID. So the other thing is like most of these customers are using third-party e-commerce channels also, right? So it does not mean that it works only for the out-of-box channels, but if you are having third-party e-commerce and the orders are integrated from there, just make sure that you are having certain key checkboxes checked. The retail sales is one of it, and the sales order origin is the other of it, uh, for DOM to work. Okay, and then DOM will process those orders for fulfillment. Okay. Most customers are batching grouping orders and run DOM twice a day. That's one of the recommendation also, that don't run DOM every 10 or 15 minutes. You can run it like 2 or 3 times a day, but check with the business what their needs are, and you can run accordingly. Uh, and most of the customers are using DOM with advanced warehousing with inventory status as a default value. The default is being available. Okay. And we also recommend that you specify a default issue location on the warehouses. Now, coming back to the rules, we have 7 different rules, but out of 7 different rules, we see location priority, minimum inventory, and the partial uh, uh, ordering rules, as most used rules by our customers. Okay. In some cases, we do see like maximum number of orders is also being used by customers. So this maximum number of orders is basically in the holiday season and something like businesses are using. Okay. Uh, as I mentioned, that sales order origin provides a lot of flexibility. Some of the businesses, like they have a segment of customers, like gold tier customers, or VIP customers or non-VIP customers, right? So and the inventory can be limited for order brokering. So what they can do is like they are creating 2 different profiles, one profile for VIP customers and other for non-VIP customers. And they are running the down processing for VIP customers first, so that they get the preference of on-hand inventory, and then they are running for non-VIP customers. So see, like this sales order origin, the message is that it can be used in different ways, okay, for your configuration. Last but not the least, we also see like some customers are utilizing DOM for fulfilling their pack orders. Okay. Now, suggested approach that you can consider during implementation. So, you can analyze the present scenario, like what the customers pain points are. Okay, and based on the customer pain points and how they want to implement DOM for order processing, you can understand. Okay, so what is the business goal that they are trying to achieve? Like whether it is like fastest delivery, whether it is the cost of delivery, or they want to do your order configuration. So these are the different inputs, right? And it can change over the time for the businesses also. So once you have analyzed your current scenario and you have the parameters, then you can simulate the scenarios in finance and operation. So just create a fulfillment profile, select the rules that you have, okay, and just broker some of the orders and see like if you're getting, if you're getting the desired results or not. Okay. The optimal parameters you can define on DOM parameters, and third processing. So in DOM processor, like the maximum, the local still radius and, setups like that you can define. So make sure that, it is following up the best practice. Okay. It is not a exaggerated value. Okay. And threads for processing is like when you're running this batch job. So if you're having only one server, then it may become a problem. So you may consider to add more servers AOS for DOM processing, especially when you are having the large number of orders and monitoring and tuning. So DOM processing requirement might change over the period of time. So in normal business, it is okay, but during holiday season, they want to process more orders. So accordingly, like the parameters need to be updated for heavy sale season. Moving forward, some best practices here, just a quick recap, like always use production solver as much as possible. Orders are grouped into batches and optimized. So default is, I believe, 2000 orders. And, you can use fulfillment profile for that. Keep local store radius in DOM parameter to a low value. By default, it is 10, but, you can change it. So just you have to see like how customer stores or warehouses are organized who are going to fulfill the orders, right? So if it is only one or two stores, like in a geography, then the value can be a different number. And if a cluster of stores in a small geography, then the value will be different, right? So Bing Maps is used for geocoding based on the city and zip code. So because we are using Bing Maps, and in some other countries, the the Bing output result may not be as much desirable as others services. So in that case, like you can use a geocoding from other services, and you can update the FNO for processing. Okay. Always define the warehouses with the address type of delivery. When you are implementing DOM, so constraints, you can start with soft constraint, okay? And then as for the business state, you can go for the hard constraint, okay? But recommendation is start with soft constraints, okay? Always define a default issue location on the warehouses. If you're using advanced warehouse, things will be different, but different in the sense like when the order is processed for fulfillment, through web processing. But from the setup perspective, default define this default issue location. And last, use the make good use of his origin. Okay, and this is where you may use some of your customizations to fulfill the business need. Okay. So I will hand it over back to Murali to talk a little bit about IOM. Murali, over to you.
Thanks, Pranav. Intelligent Order Management just got launched in public preview and will be available in GA soon. So as part of that intelligent fulfillment component, distributed order management is available as well. So let's look at a little bit about intelligent order management. So it basically has a set of, it orchestrates your order journey right the way from the order channels all the way to the fulfillment providers and delivery providers. So it's built on top of a Power Platform that's built on Microsoft Azure. It uses the Dataverse data model. Orchestration is built using Power Automate, as well as it has analytics and reporting using Power BI and AI Builder models as to do anomaly detection and other things. So first thing it has is an order capture provider. So as you bring in orders from different sources, Microsoft is working with different providers to have out-of-box connections available to bring in the orders from different sources. And then as the order processes through the order journey, for example, you may have tax validation or other kinds of validation. So there are a set of action providers that are available that work through the order orchestration journey. And then we also have a set of providers that would do the fulfillment. For example, you would have integrations with your 3PL or your dropship vendors to do POs, and as well as delivery providers. So the IOM will ship with all of this. And as part of this, as I mentioned, the same DOM component that we have in commerce is also available within IOM. Let's look at the capabilities of that and the slight differences that we have as we move forward. Can we go to the next slide, Pranav?
Sure.
So today, Pranav walked you through the first column where we have the features in DOM. So we launched DOM as part of IOM in public preview in month of May, towards the end of May. And at that point, it actually only supports single fulfillment profile or strategy, even though you can define multiple of them. As we go to the GA, we will provide a similar ability to have multiple strategies. And this would also be based on runtime determination. So as part of your order orchestration journey, you can define a policy that tells you, this is a strategy for you to pick up. So that gives you a lot of flexibility based on like the type of order, the attributes of an order line to tell DOM what is the strategy it needs to pick up. So this helps you in making it very flexible as well. And then as we are built on top of Dataverse model, we are like legal entity agnostic, meaning if you had multiple legal entities, you could use DOM and IOM to actually fulfill orders across different legal entities. We just care about, we are not a financial document, but we are more as long as the fulfillment source is the closest, we will find the best one. So in terms of other things that are slightly different are, in FNO, we can actually define constraints based on product categories. At this point of time, we are not bringing the same capabilities within IOM, but at a later date, we definitely plan to add support for product categories and supplemental hierarchy categories. So we understand the need for it, and it's widely used within fashion. For example, the supplemental categories has a highest precedence compared to the regular product categories as you define the rules. And then a few of the other constraints or rules that are not available are like offline sources, which is not really required because we define which sources to look at in the profile level. Similarly, we're going to work and add the minimum inventory as a constraint. We also see no need for having the maximum rejections at this point of time. We will definitely add the maximum orders by source as well at a later date. But this a brief overview of how DOM is available. So some of the folks had questions whether non-retail orders can be optimized by DOM. Then that would be the opportunity for you to use IOM as a mechanism if you're not using retail within FNO. Let's look at a set of questions next that we got, and I try to answer all of them as well. So one of the first questions that we got was, how does APP or order promising work? So there's a big difference between order promising. So when you show the on-hand inventory or whether it's available, not available, what you're trying to do is actually block the order from being placed at that point of time. DOM comes at a later state where it's actually trying to optimize the inventory on hand. And a lot of folks get this mixed up. When you are trying to place an order, you also want to block the order from being placed. So optimization really occurs when you have large number of orders and large number of sources with the products in mix. That's where the optimization is really there. So that was one of the questions. And I like to explain that we have both inventory visibility add-on as well as in commerce, we have functionality for you to show the actual visibility of the actual inventory levels, as well as whether you want to show a custom calculation based on whether it's available, not available, low stock, etc., as well as part of the commerce channel. There was another question about like field service, whether like it will work on field service work order. What I would like to say is field services also uses similar optimization algorithm like us. We actually work very closely with them at that point of time when this was developed. But their algorithm is more based on resources, setup, and availability. At this point, you cannot combine the optimization for sales order as well as work orders in field services. But at a later time, I think there may be some conversions that may happen. But at this point, it's not possible to optimize the services within the same sales order using a field service. Next question we had was, if you set up multiple profiles for different sales origins, would you have the rule specific to their type? So basically, with the multiple profiles and the profiles being different based on the sales origin and mode of delivery, right? Especially the sales origin, you have the complete freedom to actually run optimizations based on different types of business. Say, for example, even within e-commerce channel or EDI, for example, if you get an order which is related to B2B customer versus B2C customer, you can run that profile first, ensure that the stock on hand is actually allocated to the first B2B customers, then you can do B2C, for example, or even within the B2C customers, you can actually, like, say, have VIP customers get first based on their loyalty, and then you can get non-VIP customers to be allocated the orders as well. So there's a lot of flexibility, and sales origin actually helps you with that, because as you bring in orders from different sources, you can define the sales origin with that flexible nature of it. There are two new questions. So we are live with Dynamics 365 online. We have 4 fulfillment centers, and one have the delivery address state related to F1 to be fulfilled to F1. Yeah, so basically DOM looks at the closest. So you have 4 fulfillment centers, and basically it will use the state, the zip code or postal code, and the city to determine which is the closest, and then calculates a geocode or a latitude, longitude, and then it can then use it to fulfill from the closest. So your requirement would definitely be covered by DOM. If you have more detailed questions, you can always reach out to our team, and then we can help you with your implementation.
Yeah. So just to add, I think for this particular question, probably you can consider location priority rule also. Where you can define the location priority for certain set of items.
Right. For certain products or category of products, you can define the location priority. And you could say the first fulfillment warehouse is the first priority, then the second one as well. So you could use both, the combination of that. There was a question on if the retail transaction within POS would use the splitting. So basically, when you create a special order or a sales order that needs to be shipped to the customer, it doesn't matter which channel it is coming from, including POS. And if you want DOM to run on these orders based on the delivery mode, then DOM will run on this, and it will basically honor your business rules. Say, if you don't want order splitting, it won't do order splitting. But if you want order to be split and fulfilled irrespective of which location you're wanting to do it, then DOM will fulfill that order based on your business rules and constraints. It also ensures that the price and taxes are maintained. So as we split, we ensure the payment that was authorized and which will be settled is maintained. So the total amounts and everything are maintained as well. Okay, if there are no other new questions, we could go open it up for further questions. So, team, thank you very much for all the questions and attending the sessions. From my side, from DOM team, we will help you with your implementations as you embark on DOM journey. So feel free to reach out to us.
So if we don't have any questions, Peggy, David, you want to?
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. I've posted a link to a short survey in the Q&A panel, and we'd like your feedback on today's session and hear what you'd like to see in future events. Thank you for your participation. As a reminder, the recording of today's session will be available on the Tech Talks Community Dynamics page within 5 business days. I'd like to extend a big thank you to our presenters and audience for joining us today.